The art of stirring risotto. I put the fork close to my mouth, sniff the steam for spice, breathe away the threat of burn. Dishes like this take time and endurance. We steal the frail anthers of saffron at sunrise with tweezers, smuggle chanterelles in darkness down switchbacks. Life for the epicure is everything, including the long, hungry wait. Poetry, like food, is for everyone. Food is deeply personal, yet it's communal at the same time. We can all come together around our shared need for it. But beyond that, we can demand good, fair, flavorful food once we know how we want to talk about it. Poets have been talking about food for a long time. It's good imagery and metaphor. We can't forget Seamus Heaney's blackberries, Elizabeth Bishop's fish, Lucille Clifton's greens, Robert Frost's apples, after they've been immortalized by such masterful poets. Poems like these teach us how to sense and feel and describe, and truly appreciate the food before us, especially the story of it. The poet Joy Harjo says, "Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table when we are laughing and crying, eating the last sweet bite." We need to look at food as the poetry of our lives. The growing body of work in food systems has shown us the complexity of our food systems, which includes all the infrastructure and processes necessary to feed a population. What we need now is a new language, a mode of expression, a poetics of food that clearly represents the shifts in daily values and practices that are necessary for creating and maintaining both an inclusive and enduring food system. Because people are wanting more from their food systems than just cheap food. A recent Gallup poll showed that over half of Americans are seeking out organic food. In 2015, there were 4.4 million acres in organic production, which was up 20% from the year before. In Washington state, our organic acreage is increasing steadily every year. And science is also telling us a lot about how our farming systems and ways of farming affect the quality of soil and water, which ultimately affects our food. A review of over 300 published studies found that foods grown in organic systems had fewer pesticides and 20 to 40% higher levels of antioxidants. As consumers, we have a lot of information in front of us. We all have our own financial and geographic realities. So at the end of the day, why do you choose the food that you eat? Why do you care about your food and where it comes from? I think the answer is poetry. What we eat is so intimately connected to our communities, to our environment, to our well-being. And once we begin to look at the beautiful simplicity of food through the lens of poetry, we have an opportunity to develop our understanding of both ourselves and where we live. And having a truly sustainable food system is not going to be easy. We're not going to get to eat what we want to eat when we want to eat it. So why not celebrate the local bounty with poetry versus coveting what is absent? Personally, I talk to vegetables all the time. And I want to read you a poem that I wrote to squash, which is a winter storage vegetable I eat a lot of this time of year. Winter squash. I roast acorn squash in the oven for days. The steam comes up through the burners. The flesh falls back in silence. I've waited all winter for this fiery February night. Despite your tender green back and steep gullies, you are magnificently dense. A hidden boon from last fall that is ready to give and tastes like gold. Poetry can also teach us a lot about how our food is grown, and more importantly, the experience of the farmer. We can never forget that eating and agriculture are inherently linked. Many poets themselves have also been inspired by their own farm and gardening experience. New England poet and farmer Maxine Cumin writes, "My best ruminations happen in the barn, while my hands and back are busy doing something else." The poet Linda Hogan writes, "In one day of digging in the earth, there is a communion of what we remember and forget." As a farmer myself, I know that writing about farming and agriculture can seem idyllic in popular culture. Romantic notions of farming appear daily: the glimmering carrot, the majestically grazing sheep, the stoic farmer coming in from the field at sunset. While these images may capture the consumer or reader through nostalgia, they can also be dangerous because they can misconstrue our understanding of what it takes to make a farm really work, let alone make a living off the land. Our social media streams daily with images of the perfect spinach salad or freshly planted field. And I wonder, is all of this beautiful stimulus making us better eaters and growers? As eaters and consumers, are we getting closer to the source of our food, or are we simply consuming more? The reality is that farmers usually end a growing season not knowing what the next season is going to bring. Poetry can offer hope in uncertainty, and it can also help eaters to empathize with the true experience of the farmer. This is another poem I wrote, and it's called Falling Farm. As the last leaves gather around the base of the chestnut, geese return to the westward field. They coolly comb the vacant rows, once corn, now stubble. Snow spans its wings across the hills like angels. The glossy glow of dawn shines prophetic on leaf and hoof. Donkey, sheep, gentle herb stand against the frigid dark. It's doggedness that does it, and faith in the next spring. Let our bevy glide into winter with no wisp of despair. Let us celebrate every solemn slap of rhyme and remember, a fire breathes beneath the cold. Farming is hard. It's a high-risk profession, and farmers have to deal with life and death issues daily. In his Sabbath poems, Wendell Berry reminds us that near the end of winter, your flock will bear their lambs, and you must be alert, up late and early at the barn, to guard against the grief when any young thing made for life falters at birth and dies. We also can't forget the sacrifices that are involved in farm labor, the many hands at work. In his poem, One Today, Richard Blanco reminds us of hands as worn as my father's cutting sugarcane, so my brother and I could have books and shoes. So what do you do now? Go home and start scribbling sonnets to your potatoes? Maybe. I'll confess, I actually do that. I can't say they're good sonnets, but I've got a few of them. What I'm trying to say is use poetry as a practice to slow down, digest, and truly appreciate the food before you and where it came from. Share that language with your family and friends like you would share a good meal. Share that language with your children. The founder of the slow food movement, Carlo Petrini, writes, "The quest for slowness, the quest for taste, which is in and of itself a rebellion against the impoverishment of taste in our lives, helps us to rediscover taste." So I say, take your time, write it all down, and celebrate each step your food takes from source to supper. Savor the poetics of food. Because food, like poetry, is for everyone, to share and appreciate and enjoy. Thank you.